Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as I write out this tweet announcing that the stream is live and that we're going to jump right into the k0nfig news because that just dropped right as we're going into it. It's another episode of By the Numbers. So welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight on this fine evening. And Thorin, how are you doing, dude? Have you had a good week since last we spoke?
Yeah, in general. Like, if people don't remember, at the beginning of the year, I was actually sort of like a little bit under the weather. Like, I think like a lot of people, I had some sort of like a cold or a flu. It was one of those ones where it wasn't even that bad. Like, yeah, you lacked energy, but it's more like I had like a lingering after effect genuinely for about like a week or two, it felt like. So even though I still put out some work, like luckily I had, to be fair, I had gone ham as fuck in December. Like, you saw I had all those reflections stored up. So luckily I was in like the perfect spot actually to just sort of chill for a little bit. So bear in mind, you know me, I'm usually pretty like, I usually do actually unironically do like a video a day. So I think it's good to just have a bit of time off, sort of. And like you, I've just been watching the games again, mate. I've just actually been sort of being a fan for a bit and just enjoying the matches and sort of getting my passion back again, as it were.
Exactly. I mean, because last week we were kind of talking about that, how like we've kind of drifted a little bit away from it. And I was talking about that this morning on my stream as well, where I was just, like there's a few guys in the chat who are just like, are you still watching all the matches all the time? And I'm just like, I tune in now. I'm really selective. It's like I'm tuning in for phase, or I'm tuning in for very specific matches that where I'm a fan of particular players, or there's a storyline in particular that I'm interested in seeing develop. G2, I've been watching a lot of G2 this blast, for example, because I thought that they were going to be the team to beat. And they certainly are living up to it. They're just thrashing everybody. So, it's like there's certain things. But yeah, I get what you mean. Like I took a bit of time this week as well to just kind of sit back and watch some games and not worry too much about anything. And it's been fun, man. It's been nice, enjoyable. But dude, like I get what you're talking about. Like I feel like there was definitely a variant of there was some variants going around, man, because there was a lot of coughing. Like my wife got sick, I got sick. We were all coughing for like weeks. It wouldn't go away, all that sort of stuff, So it's like definitely I feel like there's a few things making the rounds because I feel like in the last 6 months I've gotten more sick than I have in the last 10 years. I don't know what's going on, if it's because we're all staying home so much and we're not traveling out as much, or whatever it is, but I feel like I've gotten more colds in like the last 6 months than freaking as long as I can remember. It's crazy. So it is what it is, I guess, right? Let's just hop right into this k0nfig news, because this k0nfig news just dropped right before we go live here, where roster update from NiP. Welcome to the dojo k0nfig. So they must have been aware of his history in combatives. He has made his way. He has made his way to the dojo in more ways than one. So, dude, I mean, did you have like? I figure we could just literally read through this because.
By the way, just to start with the first thing you just said there before we get into
it. Go for
it. Even that alone, even though, like, obviously that's just them, like, awkwardly trying to force the branding that NiP and ninjas, right? Which never really, by the way, I've always thought this from the beginning of that fucking team when it was just a clan org in, like, fucking 2000 or something. That angle is the least fun angle. Like, it's a funny name, but once you become good at the game, it's just a name. It's like Forest or Get Right. You don't think how weird the spelling is. But the idea that they actually think that actual branding is good, like, because the reason why, like in the modern day, it's okay, it sort of works. Because let's be real, like G2 claim they're samurai. It's like, I don't really know in what way you're samurai. None of this marketing really works. Even though geniuses are like, we're evil. But here's the problem that doesn't work, like you say. Guys, this guy literally was in a scenario where he was beaten to either an inch of his life. Like, what, like 5 months ago now or 4 months? Maybe don't associate any sort of martial art or violence with him, Crazy idea. Maybe just leave that out of this tweet. Because I thought the same thing you did, Semmler. Like, yes, welcome to the dojo, fucking cotton blood.
It's like Pai Mei or something, where he's going to be carrying the buckets of water up the stairs, and Pai Mei is going to just be breaking his ankles. Sure. Which one was it again? I'll do the other one. We'll toughen you up. Holy, yeah, dude. I mean, it's just, well, I mean, this is just to be expected from the NiP org. It's not exactly like they have the brightest bulbs in the box over there. But holy moly, dude. And I mean, let's just take a look at this is fresh for me, guys, because I'm just sitting down to the PC. I'm just looking at this.
Only came about half an hour ago anyway, to be fair. But
and I was eating dinner. I was eating dinner, but I'm curious about this, right? So you all know by now that we take our player health very serious. We take player health, not even our player health very seriously. When we're doing our jobs well, our players know that too, and there's mutual trust that allows us to notice and address issues quickly. I'm already
Here's another thing that is mental in the context of someone writing that paragraph out. Think about the way that sentence ended. It goes, there's mutual trust that allows us to notice and address issues quickly. You have literally, ninjas in pajamas, you just come off the longest inactive period ever for a great player who didn't retire. That is mental. Like, you actually, the joke is the reality is 180 factually opposite of what you're saying now. But let's be real. In the modern day, the whole point of PR is just fancy lying in it, you know.
We still don't know. They still haven't addressed Device being on the bench as long as he has. They still haven't addressed any of it. They just kind of were like, actually, let's not talk about that for 6 months.
They got the money. They don't care. They got the money.
Device is at Astralis. It's weird how that works. Well, okay, fine. Fair enough then. So, okay, next paragraph. You also know, undoubtedly, that we always protect our players' privacy in these matters. So this part, clearly, yes. So this part of the announcement will be very brief. Hampus has spent the last few days consulting with our performance director, trolls, and medical professionals, and we've agreed that he needs a break from esports competition. We've assessed that in order to ensure that he has the time and space needed to get well. Hampus will take the rest of the spring season off with our full support.
Right. One thing we have to say here, because we're obviously going to talk about this topic, is when someone gives no information, it's not, by the way, that you have carte blanche, you can say anything, but at the same time, like, there is an open area to speculate. Like, we don't have any behind the scenes info on this. Because here's the problem with this, Semmler. I don't know about you, but when I heard the story that at Blast, Hampus had to leave and then be replaced, I just assumed it was something like either he's ill, that's the obvious first one, or something like a family tragedy's happened, something like, you know, someone's died, someone's ill, maybe they've got terminal problems, so something that obviously, like past instances where you come away. But I have to say, the way that's written, the implication there, Semmler, is it's him. There's something with him, and it's even implied by the way, this is, by the way, how stupid it is that they dare to say that stupid thing about privacy. Because the second that you put this part here, Semmler, our performance director, and then you put and medical professionals, right? Let's be real, guys. Presumably, think about it logically. This is where NiP's fucked up completely. They've actually inadvertently given the game away, Semmler. If it was a medical issue, like, for example, I'll give you a random one. Maybe he has a kidney stone or something, you know, something that actually would take you out for a little bit of time. Why would you be talking to the performance director? If it's the performance director and medical professional, the implication, I'm speculating, but it's just the way this is phrased, is it some sort of mental problem? It's like burnout. By the way, the joke would be it's something like that. It's just something in the vein of,
or it's like you say, it's some kind of condition that keeps him from being able to compete, i.e. kidney stone, something that comes on Swift, right? Because he was still here at this event. He was still starting this event. I mean, granted, his performance wasn't stellar. And so when he did bow out, people were like, okay, maybe that explains his performance, because at the end of last year, he was looking pretty sharp on the team. He was looking pretty good. And there was definitely a drop in performance on his side. But it is just that where, I mean, the NiP side of things, they are just that, whatever.
They're just slimy, man.
It's and also just incompetent. I don't know. Incompetent is probably the best way to put it, because it's like, as you say, if you want to keep things quiet, if you want to keep things private, you just say performance director trolls, period. Because then it could be anything. It's a performance question. I mean, that could be any number of things.
We even learned from the NiP thing that when you do that, you get all the power. Because in the modern day, the ultimate sin, you know this, is just to dare to question someone's mental health. Like, you're not allowed to have an opinion on it in the modern day. So it's actually even the ultimate smokescreen to get out with whether it's true or not, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's just fantastically stupid, but whatever. This is what I expect from the NiP organization. And we've agreed that he needs a break from esports competition. Well, good for you. We've assessed that in order to ensure that he has the time and space needed to get well, Hampus will take the rest of the spring season off with our full support. Okay. Stability is an important factor in building a winning team. And as soon as this situation came to light, stability is definitely, like, when it comes to NiP.
I know, how dare you even write that and publish it? Stability is an important factor. Well, then by definition, you've never had a winning team by your own fucking logic. You have never built a winning team except at the beginning of CSGO. Like, this is mental, because the joke is,
dude, it keeps going. And
because of Device. By the way, remember this as well, Semmler. It wasn't just Device. Remember when Device was there? They had the ZTR and LNZ guys cycling in and out of the team. The joke is, this team's never had stability. That's why it actually sucks, by the way, as an aside. Even though when we get to it in a second, I do think the k0nfig is a pretty cool one. Obviously, he's a high-skilled player. At the same time, what sucks about this is what you just said. Dude, another thing I've been waiting for is I wanted to see Hampus playing a real team. I've just seen him playing these weird teams that always have a different fifth player for, like, 2 years now or something mental. This is ridiculous. So, yeah, keep going.
Okay, so to find a long-term, so this situation came to light. We set out to find a long-term solution, That's
a key phrasing as well, yep.
That allows Hampus to take his time without impacting the momentum we're building into 2023.
By the way, you can stop there a second, because that alone is also nonsense as well. Like, I'll tell you right now, everyone, think as a fan, right? I'll give you the best example ever. Does everyone remember what Na'Vi was like when they had Boomich? Now, does everyone remember what Na'Vi's been like since Boomich left? Notice how it's night and day, and it's only one player, and we would all have argued, remember, that was the least important player. This guy's a major player in NiP. Like, there is no momentum to carry on Semmler. Like, the momentum actually, yeah, they get reset. Like, if he comes back, they can start again with the momentum of Hampers. Essentially, they're not doing that. They're building a new squad without him. And the joke is, as you're saying, because they're actually laying it on thick and putting stuff like long terms, this actually implies, by the way, they're actually going to have a 6-man roster as far as I can tell. You know? Someone's going to play for
we're in the exact same situation as Device all over again. Yeah. By the way this is reading, it makes me think we're in a Device 2.0. All right, so these are.
Oh, and by the way, think about this, Semmler, because this is an obvious thing to say. Device created the precedent that Hampers can now use. If you think about this, Semmler, if you sat there playing the whole year and you're like, when's this guy coming back? And they were like, that's not relevant. He has a doctor. Well, then maybe you go to a doctor and you go, you know what? Actually, I can't. You know what? I'm not saying you do it frivolously, by the way, but maybe you actually have a time when you're feeling bad and you go, well, fuck it. If that guy had a year off, I can have a few months at least. Can't I have 2 months or something? That's going to be logical. Someone else can claim that if a Device is allowed to do it, guys.
So there's a precedent. You're arguing precedent now at this Device situation, and that's it. Now,
yeah, sure. Because how could NiP say no is my point, you know what I mean? It's like what happened when Zipnix took his time off. You know, when Glaive and Zipnix both took time off.
Yes.
But I think
wasn't like, notes.
If you remember, it was like Zipnix. I think this is the way around it went. I think it was Glaive got the doctor's note, and then Zipnix did. I don't think he even had the doctor. One of the two had it, but then the other one didn't, but they just got it as well. So that's what's implied to me, dude. It's like anyone in NiP can say this now, if you have a good reason, obviously.
Worse. Okay, so let's see. These are big flip-flops to fill, but we
just trying to be silly with that, I assume. Keep going.
In a very serious press release, we're going to keep being silly.
I don't get that. Okay.
But we've been able, they're all over the place, but we've been able to secure our top pick for the 5th spot. We owe a great thanks to all the ecosystem partners that pulled together to solve this situation in record time. So we welcome a new ninja. k0nfig joins the roster right away, donning our jersey for the first time on February 1st in the IM Katowice 2023 play-in. Onwards and upwards.
I feel like the part that's going to get missed here, that's why we were very careful to hit like the big words very hard, is if you don't read this press release and you just hear Hampus had to leave NiP, or if you just hear Hampus is ill and k0nfig's playing, you'll think it's like for Blast, where Heroic had him for Blast World Finals and now FaZe wanted him now. You're going to think it's a standard scenario. The way that last sentence is written and the way that the other one started, where it said about like a long-term, it actually implies he's just a full-time member of NiP now. Like k0nfig is in NiP, guys, which is also amazing, by the way, because if we want to get into the actual move itself, like, let's be real. This is something I talked about last year, where even though I know the moment that all the drama was happening and Richard put his video out and we all thought about the full consequence of what k0nfig had done, in that moment, it felt like, oh, his career's over. Like, who's going to pick him up? I did tell you guys this. There will always be someone in esports will be willing to say, so you mean if I look past his problems and only look at him in the server, I get a competitive advantage? There'll always be someone who'll take that deal. In fact, look at what's just happened recently. Guys like FaZe Clan, if Rain was really going to take extended time off, was maybe going to give this guy a few months. Like, he actually is going to get into a top team. Like, he's already in one, let's be real. And as much as like, look, Hampus is a very good player, and I don't think they're a 1-for-1 fit, but k0nfig is basically like, there's not many top 10 teams couldn't use a player like this, in my opinion. So I think it'll be good. I think it's going to be fucking fire, mate.
For sure. But I mean, the obvious. I mean, given the context now that we've seen just how well FaZe performed, just how well Esatag performed, it was a point that was brought up in this Blast group where it's just like, well, if FaZe play against NiP, then there's conflict of interest because Esatag is standing in on FaZe Clan, and yet and yet he's still signed to NiP,
and he's under contract with NiP. Yes,
he's under contract with NiP. So the other question is, well, if Hampus needs to take a break, you've already got Esatag on contract. Why aren't you just playing Esatag?
I mean, it implies you're going to sell him, doesn't it? Yeah. No, the problem with that as well is, like, if people don't know, let me think how to phrase this.
Okay.
Basically, the problem I think with this whole move is I don't really know if I buy like that, because that's the point that you're making there. Essentially, what this implies is there's no context they were ever going to have Esatag back in the lineup. Like, even someone being injured. The joke is I mean, it's also a good excuse to sign k0nfig, though. That is another point. Because think about it, right? He's just been in the news with all the standing and, FaZe wanted him. It just means your fans are going to think it's a slam dunk. It sounds like, wait, FaZe wanted him and we're going to get him. That does sound good. You know what I mean? I guess just to play into the fan angle, that does make it sound like a better move. But as if instead you said this, Semmler, don't worry, guys. Hampus is out, but S-Tag's back. Like, mate, I don't mind S-Tag. I think he does a good job. But I know he's not a sexy player, is he? Like, he's not the player people are like, oh my God, he's
Not
a workman.
sexy player, but given the context right now and how he performed for FaZe in this on short notice, as a stand-in, fucking smashed everybody. He had a sick. I mean, I can't remember the rating off the top of my head because I haven't checked like in that last match. But I mean, dude, he did terrific in that match against OG. And I'm just sitting here going like, well, what's the matter with us, S-Tag? I don't know, like what's going on here? Why aren't you bringing him into the fold? I mean, we have been saying for freaking weeks now that you know, if k0nfig is available for free, no buyout. Why, like who when you're trying to make plays to get a good rifler on your team, who isn't making that play to try and get k0nfig in for free, no buyout? It's like, if you want S-Tag now, you're gonna have to go through NiP. You're gonna have to buy him off of NiP. He's gonna be in some kind of slave contract on NiP now, where he has to sit on the bench forever, and then hopefully somebody's gonna come along and buy him out. So you kind of feel for S-Tag in that sort of scenario, because they're absolutely gonna be looking to do that with him. k0nfig is out in the wind right now, no buyout. I'm surprised that it's NiP and not somebody else that managed to.
No, but here's why for NiP it's more genius to do it, because they've actually baked in a more genius angle that no one will have thought of. Remember, they're not actually gambling, Semmler. That k0nfig has to be their permanent player, and this lineup has to work. If Hampus decides in 3 months that he can play again, and k0nfig's being a dickhead, he's just benched. And it's not even any drama. You've got 5 players again. You can just go straight back on the server. You can play. It's actually, in a way, it gives them actually like sort of a safety net, isn't it? You know, another team wouldn't have that. If he had have joined, except for the rain one, if he like temporarily replaced that. But if he joined a team full time, then you just live or die whether he makes it, don't you? So I think actually for PR reasons, this could be a good way if they need to sort of like rizzle dizzle him out if he is an arsehole,
exactly. I like the way your mind works, because you now have managed to pick him up, put him on contract, and like you say, if in 3 months it doesn't work out, you put him on the bench and then you sell him. Even for, it's just gravy at that point. I mean, whatever, you had to pay for his salary, but you could probably get a buyout that'll cover his salary, and then at least you break even, if not make a little bit of profit. So I mean,
no, it's a bag
move. Could be at a, yeah, actually, I mean, as you point this out, this really is a NiP move. You know, the ninjas lurking in the shadows always, you know, they can't write a PR announcement to save their lives, but you know, they can come up with some business moves to make some money. So good on them.
I think this is a fire move though, because think about it, right? Obviously, the main storyline with NiP is the head trick guy going to become some super dominant AWP, because we're all hoping he can be really good. If he actually ends up being at all good, by the way, it doesn't have to be as good as a Monacy. If he just does the sort of tracking level of a Dexter, a fucking wonderful Elian, these players who were pretty good and they were right on the brink. NiP look like, even with k0nfig, they could be really dangerous, mate. Like, imagine Lexi B with fucking k0nfig. Like, there's going to be some firepower in this team.
And considering how they weren't looking half bad, even at this event, they weren't looking half bad. I mean, Na'Vi are not looking their best, to be fair. They're dropping maps, but I mean, NiP are taking maps off of Na'Vi. They dispatched Big, looked really confident taking Big out of the picture. That was super smooth. So I mean, yeah, no, NiP. It's like NiP are in that space right now where it's like a 15 to 10 kind of ranking, where, you know, you're in the middle of the pack right now. You're able to get rid of the gatekeepers like Big, you know, who are going to be separating out the chaff from the guys who are actually competing, but you're still, you know, not quite there to take out a top team. And so, yeah, I mean, if you bring k0nfig into the mix, it just makes me, I mean, I don't know, you know, it's just, Hampus was actually performing pretty well.
No, he was one of their best players. Let's be real. He was. That's why I say it's not for me. Like, that's why I made the example of the Boomich one.
Upgrade.
To me, the Boomich one's a bit like, that's not as big a player to remove, but like, fucking hell, look at the effect out on Na'Vi. So the problem is as well, like, I actually thought particularly his style of play, if you're an IGL, that's like a dream player to have, where they just cause like fucking chaos on the map and they hit every time, and like, you love that shit. That's what you want as an IGL. You don't have to control that, then he does that, you know?
Was the one that I was thinking Brolan? I mean, I feel like, I don't know, do you take Brolan out and you bring k0nfig in instead of Brolan, and you keep Hampus and you keep Rez and you keep going from there?
Well, here's the thing, Semmler. They have a saying, that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, because now they can bench him out, and they can, you know, Hampus wants to come back.
Because as you say, there's another angle people haven't thought about. Everyone else is just going to think the 1-for-1, right? Do you keep Hampus or do you keep k0nfig? You just nailed it there, Semmler. Bear in mind, remember, it's not a Swedish team. It is a team that speaks English. If they get to a scenario where Hampus can return and Hampus is good, then if Brolan isn't that good, as you say, maybe we upgrade Brolan to k0nfig. Like, k0nfig is better than Broline, isn't he, guys? Like, I know Broline had those years where he definitely had some flashes a few years ago, but he hasn't been that great since he joined NiP, has he? He's been
the other
little
thing
bit underwhelming.
is, though, like, I think Broline's got to be tugging at his collar a little bit right now because, I mean, no joke, dude. Esatag looked phenomenal this tournament standing in for FaZe. So I'm still wondering, like, listen, if you can get that out of Esatag, you get k0nfig on there, you got Rez who's actually doing pretty well, you get Headtrick in a space where he can actually perform. I mean, all of a sudden, NiP are looking like a team to be reckoned with. You got Alexi B calling the shots. I mean, it feels like you could actually put in a phenomenal roster with this with what they've got to work with, and then hey, Hampus needs to come back. You bring him back in. I don't know.
I personally think NiP's whole core of players is actually mad underrated because you look what they did last year when they were like that, like scuffed lineup. Sure, it's not the Hampers lineup now, but they're going to have a real lineup now. They've got an AWPer now finally. So like the cool thing for me is I feel like this is the team that like, I wouldn't be surprised if in like 2 months, this team actually like is fucking like in a dark horse for the major or something, mate. Like they actually, I think they've got some good pieces. I think they've got some pretty good pieces.
This is, I mean, cool. It bodes well. It's exciting. It's exciting to see.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.